Hello everybody, welcome to episode 11 of the Real, Raw and Relevant show with your host Lockie. Super honoured to have you joining us wherever you are joining us from. We have a different show for you tonight. I like having a bit of variety and a bit of creativity, so strap in, we'll let you know about that shortly. Coming up in the next few shows, I promised there'd be something in regards to interviews, and we have a whole slew of them coming together right now. And we're going to be doing a series called What's It Like, ... with interviewing different people about what's it like in their role, what they do, who they are in the public sphere. I've got politicians, I've got public profile people, really excited to share who that's going to be. We're making some announcements. I know this sounds like plugging stuff along, but we'll be making some official announcements probably about Friday this week. Tonight we've got three key segments. We're talking about the what and the why, a little segment I'm going to share with you. Another one we're doing called Have You Lost Your Bike? It'll make some sense when we get there. And we're going to do a mental health update. I've been doing some research and reading a whole lot again recently and share some of those findings with you. So that's what we're doing on tonight's show. Like I mentioned, like, share and comment. You know what the drill is, all these things. Spread the word if you think we're doing a cool job here. If you want to support the show, really simple. Just keep tuning in every couple of weeks on a Wednesday night here live. We also post an edited version on YouTube 24 hours later if Facebook is not your thing normally. And just come and check that all out. You can support us by heading to buymeacoffee.com/Lockie. I'll post details again after the show, and you can support us there. We're back with our first little segment. See you shortly. I want to share an approach with you briefly that's helped me, I think, navigate life. And I've simply called it the what and the why. We can find it easy to notice the what. The what is generally obvious. There comes meaning and relevance, though, when we begin to look at the why. The why is where we can find answers, interpret meaning, discover all those important lessons to learn. Take what happened recently as a great example. Academy Award-winning actor Will Smith slapped the show host in the middle of proceedings. That is the what. It'll probably be remembered and replayed for years to come, and it will be, at the very least, a meme that the internet community just revels in, well, until the next big moment happens, the next what moment that comes along to overshadow it. Understanding the why, that is where we find meaning, understanding, and context. There was offence taken at a joke featuring Mr. Smith's wife. And there seems to be a history between the host and Mr. Smith's wife, as she being the basis of another joke a few years earlier at the same event. And maybe the why could be found in the myriad of personal life choices this couple have been currently navigating. In science, it's easy to find a what, but the why, well, that's where all the magic happens. An apple fell on a man's head one day. The what was the apple fell on his head. The why began the journey to discover the universal truth that we call gravity. For years, I've been lovingly mocked in my household for my ongoing fascination with the 20th century, in particular, the major conflicts that marked that time period. For me, the what is obvious. There's 2 world wars that were fought. Millions died. The world dramatically changed. The why is what I look to begin to understand, to try and make sense of it all. Why did it happen? Who was key to the moments that led to the war? What was the justification? Where was the motivation? I want to understand the why. And right now in your life, you might be dealing with a lot of the what. And it's possibly bothering you that you don't understand the meaning behind it. You maybe find it as hampering your progress. Maybe it's causing you unwanted pain. Can I encourage you to not be afraid to look graciously, carefully at the why? Maybe you're struggling with an addiction or maybe a bad habit. Stating again and again that you have one hasn't changed anything for you. It's just simply stating the obvious to yourself. When you begin to understand the why, that is a powerful moment for you and me, and then in turn for those around us, because healing and hope can begin to come. I don't think it's wrong to ask the why. Just be kind to yourself in the process. Sometimes it can take a while, and okay, that's fine as well. You will get there. And don't expect to always like what you discover, but recognize the revelation of discovery is what you probably need. A brave person never just settles for the what. They press on to look at the why. And a wise person carefully considers what they learn from that process and what, if any, response there should be. Something to think about. I've got another clip. I saw this on Sunday night, and I was taken aback by it, and it'll make some sense when you see it. So maybe we just watch it together. And I've titled it, Have You Lost Your Bike? Again, it'll make some sense, hopefully, when you see it. Just something a bit fun before we do something a bit more serious.
First might look like a field full of colorful plants is actually a dump of lost or broken bicycles in China. A few years ago, dozens of bike-sharing operators flooded the streets of Chinese cities with millions of bikes in an attempt to reduce traffic congestion. Their rapid growth, however, was outpacing the demand and only strained the already dysfunctional infrastructure. The citizens would just leave the bikes in the streets, eventually clogging up and blocking the roads. Just imagine how much space this giant pile of bikes would take in a city.
What did you think of that? When I first saw that, I saw it on Sunday night. I was watching, maybe you like me, and for entertainment, a bunch of YouTube channels that I follow, including that one. They have all these sorts of bizarre kind of things. And I know the guy sounds a little bit like a robot speaking, but when you're looking at it from up high, it does look like fields of tulips or whatever in Holland or something along those lines. And when you zoom in, you see all those bikes. Man, what a waste! Why can't we ship those bikes around the world and have a bike service here? But it just shows you as well that sometimes we come up with ideas that haven't been that thought through, eh? Amazing, eh? Just an absolute shocker. Hey, I want to give you a... now we're going to get a bit more serious now that we've looked at loads of bikes that look like flowers. I'm going to give you a bit of a mental health update, and I prepared some material, but just bear with me. This is taking a little bit of material to work through, but I'm really keen as we're going through this. If you see something in there you find interesting or whatever, or want to make a comment about, feel free. Always, that's how this works on the show when we're doing it live. Make a comment and let us know what you think as well. For most of you who have been following the show, you know that on a regular basis we've talked about issues regarding mental health. I've not shied away from my own challenges with that over the last couple of years especially, and we've counted it an honour just to share some thoughts and interview some people. And so I'm always looking out for what's new in this space, what's being reported. And I just want to share a couple of things with you because I think it's really important to understand where we're potentially at and have some things to consider. So just recently I saw this from Stuff. It's entitled, New Report Shows Significant Challenges But Not a Mental Health Crisis, Director General of Health says. And if you read further down, Director General of Health Ashley Bloomfield says there isn't a mental health crisis despite a new government report finding ballooning specialist wait times for children and adolescents and increased antidepressant and antipsychotic medication dispensing for young people. Carries on to say all mental health services for children and adolescents are short at least a quarter of clinical roles, with a deficit as high as 40% in Wellington, despite a huge $1.9 billion investment in mental health. What that essentially means, as you can guess right there, is even when people are putting up their hand for help, there is a shortage of staff to be able to look after them or to be able to respond to them in a timely, quick manner, because these issues you have to deal with quite quickly. It also carries on to say in the article that antidepressant dispensations for young people aged 15 to 24 have increased 21% in 12 months. So this is the latest data on this. This is compared to an 8% increase for the total population. Antipsychotics initial dispensing had also increased 18%. So there's a pattern going on. It's very obvious. So the data is now matching the concern that many of us have had in the last little while. In fact, Peter Dunn wrote in the Scoop Independent News recently, he said this: $1.9 billion spent on mental health produces no results. Well, not technically correct. It's 1.9 that's been put towards it. It hasn't all been spent. But according to Mental Health and Wellness Commission stats, 1 in 10 New Zealanders made use of the website www.depression.org.nz in the 20 to 21 period. At the same time, just over 191,000, that's 3.7% of the population, accessed mental health services directly, and 9,392 were admitted to acute inpatient care. Our annual suicide rate rose to just over 600 cases, with our youth suicide rate remaining one of the highest among the world's developed nations. Which helps lead on to this. In an article I read that was put together by Stuff Again and entitled "We Need to Talk," which is a great title for this particular segment here. It says, mental health campaigns promote a simple message: ask for help. But for thousands of New Zealanders living with mental health and addiction issues, the hardest part is not asking for help. It's being told they have to wait months to get into treatment. See, this whole thing is really, really challenging. Again, referring to the 1.9 billion funding boost, the system has become a perverse waiting game where even being desperately unwell counts for nothing. Serious cases are reduced to waiting for treatment, while the not so serious cases are left to fend with themselves. Goes on to say, but further down this article, 1 in 5 New Zealanders live with mental health illness and addiction, and it is estimated that nearly half the population will live with mental distress or addiction at some point. There's a great quote here from a psychiatrist from the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists. They've said, we often feel like patients are being discharged to the community to fail. This failure takes the form of suicide, homicide, estrangement, and homelessness. See, these are very, very challenging times. To follow on from that, I was actually listening to a podcast recently. I do that on a regular basis. I love to, when I'm doing other activities, like this particular day I was actually doing gardening, one of my least favorite things to do in the world, but I thought I'd listen to some podcasts, and one of them was actually an interview with a guy called Scott Atlas. Now, his claim to fame is, I'll read it here, from 1998 to 2012, he was the professor and chief of neuroradiology at the Stanford University Medical Center. So he's obviously a very smart cookie. And because of that, he was selected by President Donald Trump in August 2020 to serve as an advisor on the White House coronavirus task force. If you search up this guy, you get so many reports depending on your political leaning. I thought what he actually had to say on the Leighton podcast, his comments, especially relating to mental health right now, to be extremely illuminating, because he particularly mentions the methods used to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and the impact that it had. And I just wanted to, I'm going to post it on here now. As part of the show, obviously I've taken a screenshot of a video I've taken off a device. But I just want you to listen to what he says, and I want to share some thoughts when we come back with you real soon.
But these people were writing me. I had several emails from people who lost loved ones from the lockdowns. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, in fact, one Friday, the same day, in succession, I had an email from a woman who had been emailing me several times. I tried to read the emails, although I didn't necessarily respond to many. And she said to me, "You're right. Everything you're saying is right. It's very important to keep speaking. My husband killed himself last week because of the lockdowns and his isolation from people. But please keep going." Okay, so that is really stopping you in your tracks. And then an hour later or so, I got an email from someone else who said the exact same thing. Please keep going. My daughter tried to kill herself today, and we need her to have a reason to live. Please keep speaking out.
Why did US deaths shoot up 40% above normal last year? That's a headline from January 16, the Epoch Times.
Well, I mean, what's not being paid attention to is that very early on, even in, say, summer of 2020, a third of the excess deaths are deaths above and beyond what is expected if there was no pandemic, because there's a calculation you can make based on previous 3 to 5 years. Excess deaths is an increase in deaths above that expectation. And it turned out that even in summer of 2020, roughly a third of the increase in deaths in the United States were lockdown deaths. They were not due to the pandemic, the virus. They were due to the management of the pandemic. And now how could that be? And this is the answer to your question, by the way, not just being long-winded. How could that be? Well, because the lockdown involved right away not only stopping medical care that wasn't deemed quote unquote essential, but it also involved injecting fear into people so that people that needed life-saving medical care were afraid to go in. Okay, we had a massive explosion of opioid deaths, of drug overdoses, of suicides in teenage girls. We had 300,000 cases, by the way, just from spring 2020 school closures in the United States. This is why I say, the sin of closing schools in the United States and locking down and isolating young people will really, I'm not sure it'll ever be repaired. So we closed schools, and not only was academic learning a gross failure, objectively speaking, in the U.S. Through the 2020 lockdowns, there was a tripling of self-harm visits to doctors by teenagers year to year, meaning over the previous 2019 year. Tripling of self-harm. These are kids who are putting out cigarettes on their skin or cutting their wrists. We had an explosion of depressive disorder, of anxiety disorder. In June of 2020, the CDC, this is before I got to Washington, did a study, and they published it, and that study showed that 1 in 4 college-age children in the United States thought of killing himself in June of 2020 from the isolation. Okay, so this kind of harm, and we see it today in the U.S., 52%, more than half of college-age children during the lockdown of 2020 had an unwanted weight gain, and it averaged 28 pounds. Okay, we're talking about, about 12 kilograms of fat. That's a public health problem. Mm-hmm. We have half of kids in that age group in the U.S. by survey, a full 50% say they are afraid of all social interaction. This is really devastating to young people. Again, the lockdowns, as I and others have said, were a luxury of the rich and also a luxury of people who are older, and they really destroyed a whole generation.
When I was growing up, and when you were growing up, I'll talk collectively, you tell me if I'm wrong, we never came across any incidents of self-harm or suicide for that matter. I never experienced in my entire youth any of that sort of thing. Now it's prominent. What took place, what happened, what's missing, what got destroyed, whatever, to cause kids to do that sort of thing to themselves, cut their wrists?
Yes. Well, the isolation was the problem here, but I think you're alluding to something that is also sort of generational probably. And I don't know the answer, but my feeling is that we have become societies that are far less dependent on human interaction. We're generating a generation of people, children, who are looking at technology, who are looking at computers. There's a lack of person-to-person, face-to-face interaction in general. So what there is residual of that, meaning going to universities, going to schools in person, seeing your friends, is even more necessary, I would guess. I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff, but I would suggest that we have a very fragile younger generation when you take away all the remaining interaction that they have in person, which is really schools and the social parts of school, because of course school is not just learning material. It's not even just learning critical thinking, as I mentioned early on. It's also socialization. It's learning conflict resolution. It's learning group activities. It's doing physical activity as teams. There's all kinds of things we learn in school and social settings that were really taken away. And I don't think, frankly, that we have seen the tip of the iceberg with the damage here.
Well, I guess there's a lot of the what and some of the why in what I've just been sharing with you on this episode. But here are a couple of the whys that I've been considering in the last little while that could be contributing to the crisis with our mental health that we're going through right now. I've just got 4 of them. Just want to quickly share them with you. Keen to get your feedback on them. And the first one is this: hope gone. Just hope gone. It's this constant I'm hearing, and everyone else in the world is hearing right now, that it's the end of the world. Whether it's Greta Thunberg or AOC through to Al Gore, there are names that many of us will have, or acronyms for names that many of us will have heard. The world is about to end, whether it be 6 years, 7 years, 11 years. The world is about to end. And I think that's really the point, because people are asking questions, and I think a younger generation is asking the question seriously: what is the point? Like, what's the point of building a life and making plans? Because the world is about to end really soon. Now, when I was a teenager, all we wondered about, I think, was nuclear war and maybe AIDS. AIDS being the disease that people were concerned about. There was not the level of concern and issue and worry, I think, that the new generation coming through are carrying. So hope is gone. The second one is the social media. I think we underestimate the power that it has for good and for bad. I love the fact that we can use social media to talk to our family and friends and share some of our life and all that sort of stuff and learn what's going on in the world. But right now, people are seeing so much and are not necessarily processing it, which will be my next point. But there's also this thing we call, or we quote all the time, that comparison being the thief of joy. People are looking at other people's lives and thinking, because it's on social media, it's so amazing. And other people, especially a younger generation, are looking at their friends and looking at their body type and their shape and their status and how many likes they've got and all those things that go into the social media world. And I think it's robbing them of their mental health to some degree. The third one, Sean was just alluding to, was the loss of critical thinking. I'm going to do a segment on this, I think, on a future episode, but I'm wondering whether this current generation has lost this ability somewhat, the ability to analyze what's right in front of you, to navigate the data that you have, what's coming towards you, and make choices based on your analysis really well. I think critical thinking is really helpful for navigating our lives well. And the final one is this: everything is just so short. Like, everything has been put into nice bite-sized pieces, whether it's a video or a sound or a social media post. And I think people have done studies on this about dopamine and all that stuff. We get these quick hits all the time. And we haven't learned how to play the long game. We haven't learned that sometimes processing things over a longer period of time is helpful. We want quick fixes, quick help, quick get this, do that, find out this. And we haven't learned to play the long game because everything is too short. Anyway, that's some of what I think. How about you? Let us know what you think. What do you think? Let us know in your comments, either live now or anytime whenever you're watching this. We always moderate it and keep an eye out and respond where we can. Hey, if you're wanting to get in contact with us, our email will come up real soon when we roll the end credits. So that's it for episode 11. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope it's made a measure of difference in your life, whether you've watched it live or whether you're watching it in your leisure some other time. Hey, God bless you, and I'll catch you real soon.